Kansas City Chiefs are the kings of the league and the AFC West, but there are two teams that are coming, Denver and the Chargers. Who's going to take their lunch money? We'll talk about it today here on Locked On NFL.
The barbershop is open and Tony Wiggins has a chair for you. He's ready with some real NFL talk. The local experts of Locked On bring their expertise, and Wiggy is ready with his clippers and shears. Sit down and enjoy. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
It is your team every day here on Locked On NFL. We thank you for making us your first listen while you come into the barbershop, the second edition of Locked On NFL, the daily edition of Locked On NFL. And today, my local expert is Ross Jackson from Locked On NFL, Locked On Saints, all those other things that he does in New Orleans. Filling in for Matt Williamson, but we're going to tell you what we're going to get into. A big weekend. We're going to do a rundown. Tell you who's going to win, who's going to lose these games. The MVP stretch run is here. And I got to get Ross's opinion because I've been asking everybody else theirs. I'm all about Lamar Jackson. What happened to the Dolphins? They are probably the most surprisingly not good team in the National Football League. And we're going to start, not going to bury the lead. We're going to start with the Chargers and the Broncos, and they are coming. Those are two really good football teams with two good quarterbacks and two coaches and an understanding of what it takes to get it done. Today's show is sponsored and brought to you by Hillsdale College. Today's episode is brought to you by Hillsdale College. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/locked-on to enroll. There's no cost and it's easy to get started. And go on over to Amazon Music to check out Locked On NFL. That's right, Locked On NFL. Locked On NFL over on Amazon Music. Mr. Jackson, what is happening?
You know, glad to be here with you, man. We've been trying to, we've already done a whole other show. We just ain't hit record. Not literally, but like, man, the show before the show was crazy.
It's crazy, man. Probably would have got both of us fired, but that's okay. We don't need to be putting that on here. That's all right. Good game last night on Thursday Night Football. Finally got a game that mattered on Thursday Night Football that didn't involve teams that weren't going to the playoffs. In fact, yesterday I talked to Chris Carter when he was on yesterday, and I said, this game is interesting because there's 7 playoff teams. The 7th seed plays the 2 seed. Who do you want to play if you're the 2 seed, and who's that 2 seed going to be? Well, Ross, I'm going to let you know right now before we even get going on our main subject, and that is which one of these teams is equipped the most to dethrone the Kansas City Chiefs in that division.
All right, it's Friday, right?
Yeah.
It's the Friday episode. So I'm going to use Friday as my analogy on this one, all right? Kansas City Chiefs, that's Debo, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you got the Denver Broncos and you got the Los Angeles Chargers. Los Angeles Chargers, that's Craig, right? And then over with the Denver Broncos, that's Smokey. They're both coming for Debo. All right. They're both coming for Debo. Just one of them is going to do it a little bit more buttoned up. You know, I'm not going to get fired on my day off kind of stuff over with Los Angeles. Like Jim Harbaugh is going to have them all together. But, you know, Smokey set everything in the motion. He set everything in motion. That's Sean Payton and the Denver Broncos over there. I think they're both coming for him, man. Like this is not a solidified Kansas City Chiefs AFC West division anymore. There's some up and comers here ready to take it to the Kansas City Chiefs and make things interesting. I think it might be Los Angeles that picks up the brick. You know what I mean? But I think Denver's going to be in the conversation nonetheless.
Hey, man, look, it's principalities involved in this, right? That's what it's involved. It's principalities, man. All right. Hey, look, man, here's the winner of the game last night. I'm going to let you decide who sounds the most confident. Here's my man, Drogi from Locked On Chargers.
The Chargers come screaming back after erasing an 11-point deficit to beat the Broncos 34-27. This is David Drogemeyer of the Locked On Chargers podcast, and Justin Herbert was fantastic in prime time tonight. 23 of 31, 284 yards and 2 touchdowns, including a shovel pass to Hassan Haskins that put the Chargers ahead for good. The Chargers offense scored 21 points in the second half. That's the most second half points this season. And after surrendering 21 points in the first half, the Chargers defense stiffened up and only surrendered 6 points in the second half. The best second half performance of the season and the signature win of Jim Harbaugh's first season as head coach of the Chargers. The Chargers sweep the Broncos and slot back into the 6th seed in the AFC playoff picture. But for more on this win and for more on the Chargers, please check out the Locked On Chargers podcast, your team every day.
Big difference with the Chargers is normally they get in these games and they found a way to lose them at the end when Brendan Staley. Now the team just seems to have this confidence that they know they have the right leader and they're just as calm as they can be.
Yeah, absolutely. And they got a defense, and Kevin Minter's defense over there, man, is no joke. The way they've been putting it all down, putting it all together. I think that's a big piece of it too, is their ability to be able to close out those games by holding off opposing offenses as opposed to trying to keep pace, which is oftentimes what they were doing back in 2023.
And there's a flip side of this, and I have to be transparent. I thought at the beginning of the year, especially after the draft, I said Sean Payton, the GM, is basically gonna get Sean Payton, the coach, fired. And I was just like, who are these dudes? Who are they drafting? And they got Bo Nix. Well, the reckoning has come, and they are pretty dang on good. They got a bunch of good, scrappy players. You want to talk about scrappy? How about Cody Rourke? They lost the game, but he's going to tell you a little bit. Well, I don't think he's too upset about it because it was very, very competitive. Listen to what Cody Rourke from Locked On Broncos has to say about last night's game.
The Denver Broncos suffer a massive collapse in the second half against the Los Angeles Chargers, fall to 9-6. This is Cody Rourke, host of Locked On Broncos, and it was a tale of two halves here for the Broncos and the Chargers on Thursday Night Football. The Broncos had a 21-13 lead at halftime, but in the second half, they couldn't get off the field. Penalties capsized them in the second half, and they couldn't find an adjustment to Ladd McConkey and Chargers wide receivers on crossing patterns. This loss is a big one here for the Broncos. Their final two games against the Cincinnati Bengals and Kansas City Chiefs, they're not going to be easy. Denver has to win to get into the postseason, and those are two tough games right there. The run game was going on in the first half. Couldn't get any rhythm in the second half here. So now the Broncos, their backs are up against the wall with 2 games remaining, with 2 tough opponents left on the schedule. Make sure you check out Lockdown Broncos, free and available everywhere you get your podcasts.
Ross, there's a chance they don't make it. If they don't win and the Bengals win out, which is really, really possible because they're real good offensively, even though their defense is terrible, there's a chance that they don't make it still. I didn't expect them to even be in this conversation at this point, and I think the future's bright for Denver looking forward.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, man. And look, one of the things, I covered Sean Payton here in New Orleans, and one of the things that he was always sort of criticized for was his inability to draft and develop quarterbacks. Well, he has bucked that trend big time. Look, in the NFL, it's tough to guard crossing patterns when you're a man-heavy team, even when you're a zone-heavy team, because people are going in and out of those zones and things like that. You got to be able to adjust to that. That's over on the Vance Joseph side of the football. They're going to get that right. Vance Joseph is one of the best in the game. Everything that you saw from this Denver Broncos team on Thursday Night Football, even though the result on the scoreboard wasn't what they wanted, the result in the second half wasn't what they wanted, still gives you every bit of reason to be confident about this Sean Payton-led Denver Broncos team, because they are still a very good team, and everything that's been an issue for them is diagnosable. This isn't a situation to where it's stuff that, you can't kind of pinpoint or it's a moving target every week. It's diagnosable. They're going to be right back on it again next week.
Man, and they've already re-signed their good left tackle, Garrett Bowles. They're going to keep him off the free agency market, and that's making that thing. They've done all of the things infrastructure-wise that you really want them to do. Wasn't Vance Joseph at one point the Denver coach? Didn't he get that job a couple of years ago?
So was he interim or something like that?
He was my thing with him is it takes a special kind of person to not be the head coach anymore, but then a couple of years later, come back and be defensive coordinator.
Yeah, you don't see that a lot. You don't see that a lot in the NFL.
Yeah, you don't really see that a lot. But that goes to, it's
not
about me.
It goes 2017, 2018. Yep.
It's not about me. It's about we. And I think a part of that really, really is also helpful to Sean Payton. What happened to the Miami Dolphins? I don't know, but, I'm all about substance. All of the style, all the nice little outfits, and cool videos. Guess what? That stuff doesn't mean anything right now to people that want to run McDaniel out of there. We're going to talk about some of these Ferraris that they have that Matt Williamson says that Miami doesn't have enough dump trucks, too many Ferraris. One of them might want to get out of there. We'll talk about all of that in just a second here on Locked On NFL. Today's show is brought to you and sponsored by Prize Picks. That's right, man. Our friends over at Prize Picks. It is time for you to go over there and get paid and get you some of that bread, man, because Prize Picks is the absolute truth. Now, I want you to pay attention because the holidays, they got a little bit of something going over there, man. I'm telling you, with over 10 million members and billions of dollars being awarded, Prize Picks is the place for you to have fun, even if your team isn't winning. Make your holidays bigger and brighter with Prize Picks, the best place to get real money action while watching your favorite sports. You can now win up to 1,000 times your money on Prize Picks. Join now because this holiday season, Prize Picks is giving away 2 free picks in December, and they're giving away $30+ million in rewards during Picksmas. That's right, it's Picksmas. Download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. I'll say it again. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first lineup. It's at Prize Picks, where you need to run your game. And oh boy, get ready. Today's show is brought to you by College Football Playoff. It is that time of the year. College Football Playoff is back, and with newly expanded 12-team format, it's guaranteed to be bigger and better than ever, bringing you all the hard-hitting and high-flying excitement that you love. TNT Sports coverage of the College Football Playoff begins December 21st, starting with the College Football Playoff Kickoff Show presented by AT&T, and at 11, that's at 11 Eastern, and leading into the first matchup, the Southern Methodist University Mustangs battling the Penn State Nittany Lions at noon. Then the Clemson Tigers look to upset the Texas Longhorns in a showdown at 4 p.m. Don't miss a moment of the action. Watch the College Football Playoff presented by Allstate live on TNT, True TV, TBS, and Max. All right, running it down with my man Ross Jackson, Locked On NFL and Locked On Saints here on Locked On NFL. So a whole lot of Locked On going on, brother.
That's how we roll. That's how we roll.
Yeah, that's how we roll, dog. The Miami Dolphins, easily one of the most disappointing teams in the league for a number of reasons. We can talk about Tua Tagovailoa and his injuries, but look, he came back. He's played a whole bunch this season, right? I've always shied away from teams. In Miami, it was hard to call them soft because they were like leading the league in rushing. Like you give the ball to these track stars. So it's like, I think sometimes people look at rushing yards and they think that qualifies you to not be a soft team. I think the softness is in the approach. And to me, Matt Williamson said it best, Normal Friday host here, co-host with me. They got too many Ferraris and they need some dump trucks. I think they need dump truck mentality, Ross. That you told me earlier this season they were one of the teams that surprised you the most at how they weren't very good this year.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And look, part of that was me being jaded too, right? I was a jaded ex in that situation because I chose the Miami Dolphins to be a surprise dark horse playoff team or even Super Bowl team last year, right? Last season, everything that. And then they spurned, I'm spurned, man. And then they came back this year and I was like, I'm not buying it again. I'm not doing this again. And then look, here's where they are. I like what you said earlier about all style, no substance. I watch a lot of cooking competition shows. It's one of my guilty pleasures. And what do they always talk about? They always say it looks great, but how does it taste? Yep. Right? It's the taste that matters. And man, when it comes to this Miami Dolphins team right now, they look great, but they lack the substance of flavor. They lack the substance of what it is that makes a football team win games. And that's where they are right now. And they're already starting to see some dysfunction because of it.
Nice presentation, but it's undercooked, right?
That's right. Yeah, it's raw, baby.
You can't undercook stuff. Everything has to have its own identity. My man G. Garvin, the chef, used to always say that. When you put a dish together, everything has to have its own identity. And right now, the receiving core, Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, who we'll talk about in just a second, it's too much of the same thing, man. And I want you to understand, listen, it isn't just one guy who's not successful, it's both of them. I want you to hear Kyle Krabs here when he's talking to Brian Peacock on their crossover show about what happened to Jalen Waddle.
What happened with Jalen Waddle this year? And I'm asking this mostly as a fantasy owner of his, and he became a guy. So I fully expect now that I was out of the playoffs that he's going to play and end up having some huge game against the 49ers, right? So what's going on with his injury situation and what happened with him this year, being a guy that had a couple of good games, but it seemed like he was just an afterthought in the offense.
Yeah. So his after catch production was down a little bit, and it was also down from the previous year in which he led the league with 18.1 yards per catch in 2022. He was on pace for the same amount of targets as what he had the previous season. And he was close to the same yards per target amount. But they took the Tyreek Hill push for 2K yardage thing, and they split that yardage between Tyreek and Devon Achane and Jonnu Smith. And as a result, teams were still really committed to, we're going to play press on the two guys outside that are the speedsters.
Stop right there. Wide receiver rooms, I've heard, should look like basketball teams. You got a rebounder, you got a point guard, you got a 2 guard, an athletic 3, and then a tall 5, right? They look like the Jabberwockies. They're all the same size and they move the same way. You know what I'm saying? It looks good, man, but that little routine look good when it works, right? But when it doesn't work out too good, that's what's going on, man. And now you got my man Tyreek. Tyreek when you start seeing cryptic tweets and cryptic messages, Tyreek's like, gotta go, coach. Ross.
Yeah, ain't nothing cryptic about that, man. He straight up said, all right, time for me to go. I'll tell you what, too. You know what else I think about when it comes to that offense and that approach? And it's the same thing that happened with the Jabberwockies. When we first saw them, exciting, new, fun, innovative. That's probably, you just said Jabberwockies to me probably because it's the first time that I heard them. Like I haven't heard Jabberwockies in forever, ever since then. And so like, it's the same thing, right? It gets played out. And that's exactly what seems to have happened to that Miami Dolphins offense. When you have an offense that's high flying, high octane, all that kind of stuff, just as important as the punch, you have to have the counter punch. And I don't think they ever developed that counter punch away from the speed.
I don't. You got to be able to do things differently. You got to be able to make adjustments. Quietly, that's kind of what Kansas City's doing this year. They ain't playing like they normally play, but they're trying to figure it out. However, they got to figure it out and get a win. I think winning matters more than looking the way you want to in the win. And that's the thing that I think Kansas City. By the way, Kansas City and San Francisco, that's a game involving 2 disappointing teams. But we got a game this weekend talking about 2 teams that aren't disappointing. We'll get to in a little bit, but one of those teams has the dude that I think is the MVP, and that is Lamar Jackson. If it stops right now, and now they have these critical games down the stretch, Lamar Jackson's schedule, in my opinion, Baltimore's schedule has been worse than anybody. Just think about it. All the games you saw them on TV this year was against somebody that was probably good at the time. Right? But he's managed to still, Ross, have better statistics than in any season when he actually did win the MVP before. But for some reason, everybody thinks it's this whole group thing. Everybody have to think alike. It's Josh Allen. I want you to listen to the guys from the AFC NFC squad show, the joint squad show that happened this week. By the way, y'all need to check that out on Locked On Podcast Network. Listen to them talk about the MVP. And they asked John Butchko, my buddy Butchko, they asked Butchko who he thought should be the MVP. Check this out.
Is Josh Allen the clear and away favorite, or do you think there is an opportunity here for a guy like Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, if that ankle doesn't completely erase the rest of his season, to take that award still?
I think there is an opportunity for Lamar Jackson to get back into the race. The last 3 weeks of the season, that will always tell us a lot. But I think right now the favorite is Josh Allen, because if you look at the way he's carrying this Buffalo team on his back, as you mentioned, you look, their defense has not played well the last 2 weeks. I look at it, we talked a little bit earlier about how, Josh Allen accounted for 6 touchdowns and they lost to the Rams. I kind of look at it the other way. I look at how bad their defense played in that game, and they still had a shot in the fourth quarter because of the way Josh Allen played. I also think, when you talk about MVP, you also have to put yourself in the minds of the voters. I think a lot of times voters focus on narratives, and for Josh Allen, the narrative is the Buffalo Bills traded his number 1 receiver this offseason to the Houston Texans in Stephon Diggs. This was supposed to be kind of a reset year for Buffalo. They lost some key guys on their defense. They were trying to kind of reset their salary cap this year. And yet they're still at the top of they're still at the top of the AFC. I know Kansas City's probably going to have the 1 seed, but I think Buffalo is probably the most likely team to go to the Super Bowl right now. And this isn't what's supposed to be a down year. So I think right now it favors Josh Allen. I do think that there's still an opportunity, though. There's still 3 weeks left in the season for that narrative to change.
Yeah.
Ross, anytime we see one got to go and all of that stuff, and you see all these great people, who are you going to take off Mount Rushmore? I don't like those things, because you have to end up beating down on the great person and trying to disparage what they've done. So I think Josh Allen has been great.
Yes.
But damn it, I'm going to tell you something. Lamar Jackson beat him head to head on national TV. Lamar Jackson is about to look like he's breaking every record. He owns every stat in the world. I think they're turning the MVP into, I was wrong about Buffalo. They did better than I thought, and the quarterback's playing well, so we're going to give him the award.
Bingo. This is most valuable player, not most impressive team. That's exactly where I was going to go with this too. Spot on, Tony, because that's exactly what this is. Everybody's in love with the Buffalo Bills, and rightfully so. Rightfully so, because you're right. There's supposed to be kind of a little bit of a soft rebuild for them. They didn't have the weapons on the offensive side, all those other things. And so people are enamored with the performance of the Buffalo Bills. And as always, because this is how it goes, you perform really well, the quarterback gets all the credit. You perform poorly, the offensive coordinator gets all the blame, right? So it's always the same thing every year. And so that's what we're seeing right now. That's kind of finding its way or permeating its way into this MVP conversation. Lamar Jackson has been the guy all year. His stats are better than the last time that he won MVP. He's on track to outperform Josh Allen so far this season. And he still doesn't have, yes, he's got Derrick Henry, but he still doesn't have the supporting staff that's any better than what Josh Allen has over on the offensive side of the football as well. And that Baltimore defense ain't what it used to be either. They're still good, but it ain't what they used to be either. And so I think that's a big one for me.
I wonder when somebody's going to give him credit for the fact that what you just said, the offensive line is suspect and the defense isn't very good. Usually you get apathy. You go, man, we got to get this dude some help. And this dude's the MVP and they ain't even helping him. But in a situation like this, people are so used to Baltimore being good, they just think the record is because something is wrong with the Lamar. And you look at his numbers and you look at the impact that he has on the game, and it's just not true.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, my MVP gets cussed out by his mama. That's another thing for me too. My MVP gets cussed out by his mama.
I love it. That's right. You got to be able to take that too when your mama start cussing you out and listen to it. Hey, man, we got a big game involves two teams, Pittsburgh and Baltimore. I think it's the biggest rivalry in football, maybe outside of the Yankees and the Red Sox, maybe the biggest rivalry in all of sports that we enjoy and we can see over and over again. So I'm going to surprise you if you haven't been listening to Locked On NFL. One of these teams has dominated the other one. We're going to talk about that and hear from Chris Carter in just a second here in the third and final segment, Locked On NFL. Today's show is sponsored and brought to you by Hillsdale College. It's never too late to learn. Never too late to learn. And, you know, time is your most precious commodity. So if you're scrolling through endless hours and days on social media and just not learning anything, well, I can change that. Our sponsor, Hillsdale College, is offering more than 40 free, that's right, free online courses, including Constitution 101, the meaning and history of the Constitution, Introduction to Free Market Economics, The Great American Story, A Land of Hope, and the rise and fall of the Roman Republic. All that and more, all of Hillsdale courses are self-paced so that you can start whenever and tune in whenever. Plus, you can go deeper with readings, quizzes, discussions, or enjoy the lectures. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/locked-on to enroll. There's no cost, and it's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/locked-on to register. Hillsdale, HILLSDALE.edu/locked-on. All right, moving along, getting you to all of the things you have to do on Friday. Lots of football. It's like got football every day, right? It seems like we got football every day for like the next 2 weeks, right? And that's a good thing. And the big game for me is one I always enjoy, and that is Pittsburgh and Baltimore. It's like the Hatfields and the McCoys. It's like a team looking in the mirror and seeing himself. You know what I'm saying? It's like a Rottweiler running everything with a bunch of poodles, and then another Rottweiler walks in and they just sit there and stare at each other like Puffy and that dude on that show. You know what I'm saying? But they get it in. This is something that is shocking to me, and it's probably going to be shocking to you if you haven't heard it. Their last 9 games, y'all know Baltimore and lost 8 of them. Whew. They've lost 8 of 9 to Pittsburgh. It is unreal. And normally something like that happens, it's not considered a rivalry. But Chris Carter says, no, the games were all close. Nobody blew each other out. And that's what makes this so compelling. And I'll tell you something else after we hear from him. I'm going to let you hear from Chris's mouth because I'm always excited. So I want to hear from one of the combatants right in this game. Listen to Chris, the dude whose team has won 8 of 9 against Baltimore.
These teams have always been about defense. These franchises have always been about defenses. And granted, even when they've added offensive power to their ranks, like you look at Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson is in the conversations. However, you may think Josh Allen's leading it right now, but if there's another quarterback that's chasing him right now, I'd say it's Lamar Jackson. But he's in consideration for his 3rd MVP trophy, and the Steelers are like, so what? We were going up against these guys, and they had their numbers. But again, I remind people that, like, it's not like they've destroyed the Ravens throughout this. It's always just been finding the little way here or the little way there to get the win.
Listen, man, throughout this 8 out of 9, Baltimore has had Lamar Jackson. We talk about the importance of finding a franchise quarterback. Pittsburgh was in transition. They had Kenny Pickett. They had some dude that Rudolph that's starting this week for Will Levis in Tennessee. And now they've had 2 quarterbacks this year. Wait, this isn't the right kind of math, Ross Jackson. Usually the team with the best quarterback wins. But Baltimore, for some reason, keeps finding ways to lose to Pittsburgh.
Look, sometimes the other team just has that quarterback's number. We've seen it a few times, right? For a little while, New Orleans had Tom Brady's number when he was in Tampa. We've seen it with other teams too, to where like you see all those situations where every now and then there's just that one team that one quarterback just cannot seem to get over. And that's one of the reasons why, despite the fact that Mike Tomlin gets as much hate as he gets, it's why he's one of the greats. It's why he's a future Hall of Famer. This is a perfect example of that. If you want to win, you got to win within your division. And if you want to win within your division, you got to compete at the top. And every year, that's exactly what Pittsburgh is doing up against Baltimore. And clearly, they've had some success doing it. Four straight of that 8 of 9. 4 straight. So they have a chance to go 5 straight here, which would tie the all-time win streak in that series for the first time since I think it was like the early aughts, like the early 2000s and everything. So big time matchup between these two teams coming.
There's a chance too that this won't be the last time they meet this year. So if you're Baltimore, you might want to go and win this one to prove that you can win. Because then if they don't, they'll get in the playoffs and they'll see them in round 2 and people will say, it's Lamar who can't win in the playoffs. It's Baltimore that can't beat Pittsburgh. I'm going to put you on the spot right now, Ross Jackson, as we start our whip around the NFL. That is the big game this weekend. Who you got?
I'm going to go with Baltimore. I think that they keep shaking. I think that they do that because I think that the different ingredient here is Derrick Henry for Baltimore and that run game in a different way. It's not just Lamar Jackson's run game. There's a lot going on there. And I'll say this about Lamar Jackson, too, going back to our MVP conversation. Right now, Lamar Jackson has a passer rating of 120.7, right? 120.7. And that is 4th highest in the single season in NFL history. The other 3 players that did it were Aaron Rodgers in 2020 and 2021, and then Peyton Manning in 2004. You know what all 3 of those dudes did? They won MVP. Every single one of them. They won MVP. I can't drop my mic because it's on a boom stand, so I'm going to drop my pen instead.
There you go. There you go. So Ross is going with Baltimore in our game of the week. Runner up for game of the week, but it's not on Sunday. It's Saturday at 1 p.m. and it's in Kansas City. Don't know if Mahomes is going to go. At least I don't know right now. I'm somewhere in Mexico. But listen, the Texans, I think they've already clinched the AFC South. But I do still believe that they have something to prove and to see if they can try to get on track. So who you got?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm going to keep rolling with Kansas City here. I mean, there's a reason why they've only lost 1 game. Obviously, if Patrick Mahomes doesn't play, that will be the case. I mean, that will be different, right? But I think that it's more than just Patrick Mahomes. I think it's Spags' defense too. And I think that Spags' defense going up against CJ Stroud, who's really, really good, but still young, and going up against, you kind of get the new wave versus the veteran wave, and the Spags defense up against that Bobby Slowick offense over in Houston. It's going to be a fun matchup, but I think that the defense ends up taking this one for Kansas City, so I'm all about it for them.
All right, those 2 games are the games of the week, and they are on Saturday. And we mentioned the college football playoff. They are on Saturday too, but it's staggered, so you guys will be able to enjoy all that action. It is Christmas, man. It's like Christmas for a football fan this Saturday. Now let's hit Sunday. We're going to run through these games real quick. Ross Jackson, you got a clunker up in Atlanta with the Giants and the Falcons.
Yeah, I'll go Falcons here. I mean, Michael Penix gets his start. I just can't see New York winning, period.
I can't see them winning either. How about the Arizona Cardinals? They're 7-7, surprising with the way that their season started at Carolina.
Yeah, I'll go with Arizona here too. I think Carolina's been playing really well. Bryce Young has looked the best that he's looked so far in his career. But look, Arizona's still got a lot to play for here, so I think they got a lot of reason to keep fighting.
Ben Johnson might be coaching against his new team next year because the Lions go up against the Bears.
Yeah, well, this one is about as easy as it gets, right? This is Lions all the way. Bears are just hapless, but excited to see what they can build going into next year. But I got to take Detroit here to get back on track.
My man Julian Council says that Will Levis is the king of whoopsie daisies. Well, whoopsie daisies will be on the bench this week, and they go up to Indianapolis to play the Colts.
That boy said no whoopsie daisies. I'll go with the Colts here. Anthony Richardson's been looking good. That Colts team is still getting it going, but I don't think that anything's saving Tennessee for the rest of their season.
Yeah, I want to see Taylor. You're on my fantasy team when I'm in the playoffs. Hold on to the ball all the way across the goal line, please.
Yeah, Keep
Rams at the Jets.
Oh, yeah, I'll go Rams here. Rams coming off of a big win last week, so I'm really looking forward to seeing how they're able to keep that momentum going. And the Jets are jetting 4-10 right now so far this season, and so not a lot looking good for the New York Aaron Rodgerses.
The Eagles see opportunity. That opportunity is a 1 seed. They have to go to Washington, though, to play the upstart Commanders. Who you got?
Man, I watched Washington play in person last week. Maybe it's the recency bias, but here's where I'm taking the upset. I'm going to go with Washington to upset Philly in this one. Boy, Jaden Daniels is good, man. They just he is just everything that he was promised to be, everything that we saw from him here at LSU, here in Louisiana. The kid is just really, really good. And so I'm all about what they bring.
I was about to ask you, too. Where's he from? What college?
Oh,
I was about to ask you, but you said
to LSU, and you know he's a DC boy too, so you got to connect there too.
yeah, a little bit of homage there. That's right. All right, we're going to Ohio, Cleveland against Cincinnati. You remember Sam Weiss? You don't live in Cleveland, you live in Cincinnati. Every time I see them matched up, I think about him saying that.
Goofy. Yes, this is where we get to see Dorian Thompson Robinson undergo. Jameis Winston, the most fun player in the NFL, officially benched. Very unfortunate to see that. I'll take Cincinnati here, but I'm excited to see DTR and what he's able to bring. Right, you don't get a lot of opportunities like this if you're DTR this late in a rookie, in a stint. And so it's exciting for him. So I'm excited to see what he's going to be able to bring for the rest of the season.
There are 2 more sneaky good games out of the last 7. This one's one of them. Minnesota and Seattle.
Oh, boy, this one's going to be good. I think I got to roll with Minnesota as the favorite in this one. But, man, there's not any reason to sleep. We are not sleepless. We are sleepless in Seattle because we're not sleeping on Seattle. I mean, they've been remarkable.
Yeah, they have. And the Vikings have been just sitting there just letting everybody talk about everybody else. And they're 12-2. The Patriots and the people talking about they're making changes after one season. At the Bills, I think this is the blowout of the week, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, I think this was one of the other big spreads on FanDuel and everything, to where it's just like it's an upsetting amount of points. Yeah, it's a 14.5 point favorite. This is a college spread right now in favor of the Bills, and they might cover.
Jaguars and the Raiders. The best thing I can say about it is the 2 best non-quarterback rookies on offense, and that is Brian Thomas Jr. and Brock Bowers.
That is a wonderful way to look at it. I say the best part about this game is when it's over. This is going to be a tie, 0-0.
Yeah, I told the Locked On Jags people, yeah, I'll do a postcast after the game. I'll see you about 7:30. That's a hell of a tease, right? Just inviting people to come, let's go. We talked about the 49ers visiting South Florida, Miami, both teams at 6-8, both teams having seasons that they would want to forget. Who you got?
Yeah, I mean, for everything that we said about Miami, this is the game to get right, I guess. And this is an opportunity for them because of how banged up. I mean, I don't think San Francisco has a running back that will finish the season. I just don't know where they continue to get their production from. So we'll see. I mean, I think the logical thing here is to go with San Francisco, but this might be one of those mirage games that maybe makes you feel a little good about Miami when you shouldn't.
Here's an 8-6 team in Tampa Bay that's going to Dallas on Sunday night. Let me tell you something about these Bucs now. They're the only team that's beaten both the Lions and the Philadelphia Eagles, and they beat them. They got Mike Evans back, and they look good, man. They scored 40 on the Chargers. I'm telling you right now, Ross, do not sleep on Tampa Bay. I got them beating Dallas. What about you?
Yep, I'm right there with you. I think that they clean up the NFC South, exactly where I predicted them to be, at the top of it. And I think Liam Cohen is going to be one of those sneaky names alongside Ben Johnson as one of the top head coaching candidates this offseason.
And guess where I want him to go?
I bet you want him in Tennessee. No, I'm just like.
And finally, you probably don't want me to do this, but the Saints go up and visit the fighting Peter Bukowski's up in Green Bay on Monday night.
Most hated man in Detroit right there, Peter Bukowski. Most hated man in Detroit. Remember I was talking about that college spread for Buffalo and New England? Well, it's the same for the Green Bay Packers and the New Orleans Saints. I don't think that the Packers cover, though. I think that the weather impacts this one pretty big. Like, this is going to be a frozen tundra game. It's going to be a game the way it's supposed to be in Lambeau. Like, every Lambeau game should be played in the snow, as far as I'm concerned. I don't care if it's fake or real. And so I got to roll with Green Bay here, but the Saints are going to get an opportunity to get a little bit of a look at their future. This is one of those situations where the New Orleans Saints are in that part of their lifespan where the wins don't necessarily come on the scoreboard. The wins come from, is your young talent talenting? And that's what you want to see from this New Orleans Saints team with Spencer Rattler at the helm.
No doubt about it. My man said he's rolling with the Packers. Roland. Tyler Rowland, the madman.
I know him.
That's right. You catch him on early every day on Locked On NFL. The madman will wake you up with all the NFL action that you need from around the National Football League, using local experts just like I do. And then you slide right into the barbershop and you get the same thing. A lot of fun and a lot of information and a lot of editing and a lot of stuff has to go on before we put these shows out. But we do get it done. All right. Ross Jackson filling in. We will see you, man. Y'all have a very nice weekend. Thank you for tuning in to Locked On NFL. It is your team every day. And we appreciate you being here. Glad to see you. Have a nice weekend. Take care of each other and enjoy the holiday season.